All right, so in the last week or so, I was lucky enough to be a guest presenter at two local real estate groups. One up in Marin, the Bay Area Wealth Builders, and then one in Fresno, the Central Valley Real Estate Investment Group. And it was a great show. I think both had well over 50 people there. And really, what came out of that, at least in my opinion, just because of all the questions, is there's really sort of two different ways to sort of start in this business. So I've been thinking about it for a while, and thus I wanted to sort of create this video to kind of address what I saw. First, I want to sort of highlight, the things that I asked myself at the beginning. It was kind of reflective to think back to what we were doing 16, 17 years ago before we bought our first property on Norris Drive. I want to talk to two crowds. The first is sort of you have time, maybe you're in your 20s, maybe you're in your 30s, and you have some time, and you really want to get into real estate. You think it's going to be your path to financial freedom. You think it's your side hustle, whatever it is. But the fact is, you have more time than actual dollars, right? Because there's absolutely things you can do if that is you, and I wanted to sort of highlight what those are. And then the other crowd that I talked to, and clearly the crowd that I'm looking to serve with my Pride of Ownership rentals and my 6 and 20 program and all of this is, right, you have cash or dollars, as I say here, but you just don't have those slices of time, right? You can't investigate a market. You can't research. You can't compare 50 deals, right? When I tell you you've got to look at 50 properties, you look at me like I'm crazy. So there's some things that you could do in that situation as well. And then again, I want to just, I try to sort of talk about creating momentum and talk about the first 90 days, the first 6 months, the first year, just to sort of maybe give you a comfort level about what you could be doing. And then we'll just sort of wrap this up. So these are some questions I asked myself, and I assume most people ask themselves. It's like, okay, what kind of capital do I have, right? You can think of cash in the bank, money market, stocks, liquid stuff, right? I've shared a couple of times now that when appropriate, I even borrowed against my 401k. It's not something I recommend. If you lose your job, you got to pay it back. There's all kinds of downside. But again, this is what did I do? And I absolutely borrowed from my 401k to purchase several properties over the years. How much time do you have, right? And what I have seen is you either have more dollars than time, or you have more time than dollars. It's the rare individual that's got a lot of both. So what kind of time can you put into this this adventure you're talking about? Who do you know in the area, right? What kind of scale or assets or people network that you know already that could give you a leg up? Make some introductions, meet some people. And then, how can you access the market that you happen to be looking at? So again, I've always been an open book. I'll just answer these 4 questions for you. We only had $40,000 when we started. Maybe it's more than some of you, but I'm sure it's not more than most of you. We didn't have a lot of time. I tell the stories of that 100,000 air miles and 100 nights in hotels and all this stuff, but I found a way to get up early and do lots of things every day to kind of figure out the market. We didn't know anybody. Excuse me. Through our network, we did find a sort of a quasi friend, more of an acquaintance that was investing out there, and through a friend of a friend, we actually met a property manager and agent. But in the end, we didn't know anybody. And then lastly, online, right? I think I went to FresnoHomes.net, which was a real estate agent's website, who gave some kind of access to the MLS, and that's what I used in the beginning. Now use Realtor.com or Redfin or whatever, but that's what we did in the beginning. All right, so for those of you that have time but no dollars, right? So first and foremost, I want you to know I've met many people that start in that situation and have become wildly successful. So it's absolutely possible. You do have to focus on a couple of key areas, because if you don't have capital, there's sort of 2 areas you need to get really good at and be comfortable with. The first one is you have to become a deal magnet. You have to constantly be talking to people. And then, by making connections and introductions, and, if you can connect a seller and a buyer, you can work out a fee and these kinds of things. And It's all of those introductions and fees and finder's fees and all those things that can add up over time. Lots of wholesalers that spend a fair amount of marketing, but have done quite well there for themselves, and frankly do better than I do every year. And they have time and they were going after it and quite successful. The real key is you got to find motivated sellers, right? Whether that's door knocking, whether that's mailing out flyers, whether that's cold calling, whether that's talking to friends and looking at the the code issues, or trustee sales or probate or whatever. You got to find out a way to talk to motivated sellers, and you got to talk to them every day, and you got to be consistent. It's one of the persons I've talked to says it takes 7 to 10 contacts with someone before they're interested in doing something with you. You've also got to know the area, right? I feel bad for, say, I don't know, I'm just going to pick 2 different cities. Say you lived in Dallas and you wanted to make Minnesota, St. Paul your area to go on, right? That would be hard. I think that would be really hard to become a deal magnet, know the area, all of that. I don't know either city at all. I just picked them at random. But so I would pick an area that you know well, you could drive, you can walk around, even if it's just a zip code, right? If you can get down to just knowing a zip code really well, you can become that deal magnet and become that person people talk to when they're ready to sell. You would likely become a wholesaler. A lot of people that have time and investments but don't have the big down payments become wholesalers. Worst case though, you should meet as many wholesalers as you can, because what can happen is a wholesaler's got an assignment contract and they're looking to find a buyer, and maybe they'll reach out to you and say, hey, I'll give you, again, picking numbers, $2,000, $5,000, whatever, to help find a buyer for his or her assignment fee. So again, anytime you can help someone, there's a way for you to get a piece of the action. Finder's fees. I'm a pretty frequent buyer myself, and when people find me motivated sellers and specifically owner finance deals, I happily pay finder's fees based on the value of the deal. I know lots of other cash buyers will pay finder's fees if people ask. But again, there's just, if you can get in front of deals, you can find a way to carve out nice assignment fees or finder's fees or whatever you'd like. The other thing you can do is you can become an investment partner in the deal, right? Somebody I worked with once brought a deal together and they didn't want a finder's fee, but they wanted 10% of the profit on the back end. I was happy to do that, right? It didn't cost me anything to get in. All they wanted was 10% of the profit on the back end. I would happily do that. Again, these are things that you could do when you really are talking to lots of people and finding motivated sellers. So let's flip the script, and now maybe you have dollars but no time. I think I've said it before, and again, these are the group that I'm focused on helping. It's because that's who I was, right? I was a full-time professional and had, increasing W-2s, and I just didn't have a lot of time. So I found a way, by talking to different investors that want to start in being landlord, and what they're excited about is these pride of ownership rentals that are, fully remodeled, leased at market, and then they put in conservative financing. So these are the folks I'm talking to. The other ones that have come around, done a couple of IRAs now. Other people have some cash that they just would like to be a lender on. So they've, they're obviously in my friends and family network, but they've been a part of the 6 and 20 program, 6% interest payments, during the hold period, and then they get 20%, right? So they're truly my partners when we do a deal. And there's plenty of videos on this site that talks about some actuals from some of those. This is another one. You got to live where you want, but you invest where it makes sense. This is really for the people in the Bay Area, again, where I live. It just doesn't make sense to be a landlord here. And I think, it's not, it never really has been, and probably won't be in the future as well. So live where you want, right? Wherever you work, wherever you want your family to be, but invest in markets that make sense. And, the closest one that I know of is Fresno. I think you need to understand the quality difference. This is something I've really gone into the more and more people I talk to. Is there's sort of 3 different types that I've seen when you look at the MLS or realtor.com or whatever. This is sort of slumlord stuff that's uninhabitable, it's probably vacant, it's disgusting. New sort of, if you have dollars and no time, but that's not the stuff you should be buying, right? That's full-time job dealing with those, so that's not for you. Then there's the well used, right, but rented. I just did a video on these. These are the ones that I bought a lot in the beginning. And as I showed you, the math shows pretty clearly that that was a mistake. I actually have less properties today because I bought well-used properties under market. I was too enamored with the low price point and realized that too late that that was a mistake. So that leaves the pride of ownership, right, where you're going to just pay retail. It's going to be leased at a great market rent. And then you put on conservative financing and you're good to go for many years to come. I think we really got to start talking about getting people to 4, right? I think 4 is just a good number. It's something you should be able to get to in a couple of years for most of you. It's very easy via bank financing to get 4, right? We can talk about going past 4 when we get there, but a lot of you, if we just got you to 4, you would be in a much better financial position. And again, I believe in conservative financing for these, right? I don't want you to do maximum leverage. I don't want you to create alligators. I don't even frankly want them to be close. Right, I'd like them to be reducing a couple $100s for you every month, so that you're not, you don't get, you're not stretched. There's not just, one hiccup and you're toast for the year. Right, you already have no time. You don't need additional stress from your rental portfolio, in my opinion. So again, I think you should set weekly goals. I think you should carve out time at least 5 days a week. Maybe take the weekends off, or maybe you do the weekends and you take Monday, Tuesday off, whatever that is. I think you should set weekly goals, how many properties to look at, how many people to talk to. Do I go get pre-approved? Depending on where you are in this, it's what should you be doing. Some of the goals might be, hey, I want to talk to or meet, I don't know, maybe it's 3 people. And by meet, it doesn't have to be in person. I mean, if you can email, some agents in different markets or investors in other markets, you're increasing your network right away. I do think you need to look at lots of properties, maybe pick a zip code or 2 and just get well versed in those areas. I think you really got to build your base foundation, right? I think if you spent the first 90 days, certainly no more than the first 6 months sort of looking at 50 properties, even if it's online, you would be in much better shape. And then someone just goes down there and looks at a couple and just takes a gamble. These are the things, I think these are the 2 most important things is if you have no dollars but time, you've got to find a way to talk to motivated sellers. Right, you've got to door knock, you've got to do mailers, you've got to use online access and online tools to find, probate or foreclosures or whatever. Then if you have no time, you've got to get ready to take action. Find that kind of partner. If you're in my network and you're in Fresno, good to go. I'm taking care of you. But if you're in some other markets, you've got to you should investigate the person you want to sort of partner with and really research them and figure out what they're all about. Because then you can rely on them, and I'm assuming they're going to be like I am and just communicate fully and talk about all the ins and outs and answer all the questions. So, excuse me, all good stuff. So in the end, I hope this made sense. I want to thank the 2 groups that had me out to speak. Love to speak at others. So if you know another real estate event that I should speak at, let me know. Take care. Bye.